Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's CITI program webinar. In this webinar, Dr. Jeremy Block from Baruch College is going to discuss Bring Your Own Device Studies. Jeremy Block is the co-founder of Medaptive Health and an adjunct professor at Baruch College. Previously, Jeremy was a faculty member and IRB chair at Mount Sinai, and prior to that, he worked with the Bush, Obama, and Bloomberg administrations. Jeremy has developed virtual reality and digital health tech and has designed and conducted digital health research at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and Medaptive Health. He has served on multiple academic, private, and corporate IRBs, and his human subjects protections interests are focused on the protection of vulnerable populations and situations stemming from his experience as a person who is legally blind, as well as the design and review of digital health studies.
Up front, just like we always do, the three main learning objectives for today. We're going to try to get you to the point where you can identify threshold questions and explore areas of bring your own device studies, with a focus mostly on the researcher and the sponsor from the IRB perspective. We're going to explain strategies for informing and protecting participants in these types of studies. And then we're going to talk about how you can implement some IRB operations for the appropriate review of these kinds of studies. So BYOD studies. So what do we mean here? This is a little bit like going to a restaurant, BYO, bring your own, but kind of in the IRB world and in clinical research and in trials. What we're really talking about is any kind of research study where the device that's being used for research activities, whether it's primary or not, is provided for, brought by, owned by the individual participating and not provided by the research team. And that's a pretty wide kind of, set of things, and it can go in a lot of different directions. What this really does is it takes advantage of the participant already owning the device and being comfortable with it, because it's theirs and they're taking care of it. And so there's not going to be the kind of on-ramping for them or setup for them to be handed a new device. And in smartphones, this is particularly important because if the research study provided one that was by them, well, most people in this country and around the world have smartphones at this point, and so they would have to be carrying two, which winds up being a burden to people. So the bring your own device mentality is taking off for that reason. Another note on this is that it's not limited to a single device. This could be logging into a platform, logging in on a smartphone, going onto a tablet, doing something on the web. It also could be using step tracking that comes from multiple different kinds of devices in a combination, as an example. You could have a step counter that's a part of a watch, whether it's an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or a Garmin or any of the other ones. And that can actually coordinate with someone's smartphone, and it could be step tracking that's also done on the smartphone as well, and it's got a seamless handoff. So it can be a combination of devices as well in order to achieve some research goal or research activity or collect data that's important for a research activity. Now, what can you do with this? So there's a lot of things we can do with technology, and that's an ever-growing area. And you may include one or a variety of different activities can be involved in BYOD studies. Everything from the fundamentals that we always start with consenting, which is sort of the regulatory part. It could be primary research tasks that are being performed on a device. It could be just communicating with participants where the primary research tasks are performed at a research site. It could be telemedicine, you name it. It's a whole big combination. It's not narrowly one thing or another. And finally, to make this distinction, it may be the primary goal of the study is studying technology in the BYOD. As I just mentioned, there is guidance from the FDA on mobile medical applications. It came out in 2013. It was updated in 2015. It was updated again in 2019. It's right now, as of this recording, 2021, and my guess is at some point it'll probably get updated again because it's continuing to evolve. And the FDA has stated, and I think this was a pretty good idea, that they're going to regulate moderate risk, that they might regulate moderate risk and high risk mobile medical apps, and that they were going to also provide some good examples. They heard the community, gave examples back of things that are not devices, things that they might have discretion on, and we'll come back to that just in a moment, and then things that they absolutely said they will regulate. The discretion part, I think, is interesting, and what it does is it says that the FDA is actually trying to learn. They want to look at things that are kind of in the middle, have conversations, and then use enforcement discretion to provide feedback to groups about whether or not things need to be regulated. My recommendation for the protocol side of the world is that in it, you have the researchers describe in tabular or graphical form everything about the data, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment or two. Then for the technology, provide a schematic or a platform of the logic of what they're doing, right? And this doesn't have to be down at the detail of being confidential information, of how the technology is built by the chief technology officer of a company. No, I'm not going to that level of detail, but enough so that, the smart friend can understand what's going on and how this all works. So that there really is an understanding of where things are going and how things are being managed. Make a distinction in the protocol between what's novel versus what's just doing a new version of an old thing. If you recall, the discretion area of the FDA's regulation has to do with a lot of things that are just efficiency plays, right? Being able to show you back information that you should have access to, helping you capture information and send it to somebody. And that stuff's not particularly novel. Although many companies who want to convince you that they're the best thing ever will tell you that, their new way of doing a survey is better than the previous 4,000 years of writing things down. And, it's great, it's efficient, but it's not novel. And you want to make that distinction because novel stuff really requires a lot more thought. It's a more rare. And that could be new or different ways of capturing information that's never been captured before, or a different kind of algorithm that actually will do something wildly different in controlling some sort of device. Novel stuff requires more care, and it's also more rare. Most of what we're going to get value from and most of what we're going to see is going to be things that are just more efficient. In addition, I think we need to create policies and reform researchers. Here are the 5 big picture things that I think IRBs can do on the office side to try to move themselves forward. Create SOPs governing the use of this type of research at your institution. Create an approved technologies list, along with the minimum standards or expectations for how each of them can and cannot be used at your institution. This will help and avoid reevaluating the same thing over and over again. This kind of stuff has happened a little bit in an ad hoc way because there is the sort of institutional norm of this is the survey stuff that we allow people to use, and here's the way you do it, and here's the person you talk to. And none of that is written down in any clear way. With the proliferation of this kind of work and these kinds of systems and this kind of tech, it's now time to do that in a little bit of a more formalized way, because you want to just evaluate it once, do a good job of it, have it on a list. That way somebody can pick it up and say, I want to use this. In the beginning, we looked at the threshold questions for BYOD studies, focusing on the researcher and sponsor. We then went through some of the strategies for informing and protecting participants and looking at it from the participant perspective and what you're going to be showing to them. And then finally, we went through some of we said it was easy, but it's like actually a lot of work, how you might be able to implement on the board side and in the institution, some of the operations approaches for the review of these studies.
Please also be sure to visit citiprogram.org to review our content offerings, as we are continually adding new content in various areas of research, ethics, compliance, professional development, and higher education.